I'm here today as well as with Eric, also with Professor Ralph Schroeder, who's Director of the Master's Programme, with Laura Maynard, who's our excellent graduate administrator. Obviously, they're also shortly to depart for a little while. And delighted also to be joined by Tessa Ablett from the Admissions Office to answer some of the technical queries. So the format really is we've got about an hour of just sort of talking to you and taking some questions. If you'd like to then hang around, have a cup of coffee, talk to us a bit more informally, or if you fancy having a tour of the OII and maybe meeting some of the other faculty, we'd be really delighted to have you here a bit longer. During the next hour though, I'm going to talk a little bit about the OII. I'm also going to get then obviously Ralph and Eric to talk more specifically about their courses. But before we come on to that, I'm going to bring in Tessa just to give you a bit more of a lowdown on the nature of the admissions process. Are you going to stay with us for the hour, by the way, or are you fine? Okay, super. So you've got extra questions. Okie dokie. I wanted to just give you a little bit of an insight into who the OII is, where we came from, what we do. Hopefully, you've read a fair amount about this already. But I thought it was just worth pointing out a few of the things that are perhaps harder to discern from the website that we really like to highlight. And maybe, one of the first things it's worth saying is that obviously Oxford is in a tremendously old and hallowed institution, and the OII is pretty much, I think, still the newest department within that. So we've been around since 2001, and one of the advantages of being a new department is that obviously we are, we're still relatively small, we are still relatively young, and we can innovate really very, very quickly. And this is very evident, I think, in the teaching programmes that we offer here. If you look at the content of the courses, we'll talk a bit more about that later, you can see that the content is very much driven both by the sort of cutting-edge research of our faculty here, and also, if you like, though, by the what we see going on in sort of the field of research around us, where we want to be able to react very quickly to either new questions, new approaches, new methods, and so on. So we are relatively small, but in many ways it makes it much easier for us to sort of move and react where we think innovation is needed.
Vicky, we're no longer the smallest department in social
sciences.
I gather.
No,
we're bigger than the sociology department now. I don't know if that says more about sociology or about us. But
who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? The other thing that's different about us, again, which is maybe not so easy to pick up, is that when we were started, which was down largely to the efforts of sort of several key individuals here in the university, Master Bailey was one of them, and a rather fantastic lady called Dame Stephanie Shirley, who was our initial benefactress. One of the key elements of that sort of initial founding was that we shouldn't really just focus on academic research, but we should also ensure that academic research has impact. And this has become a big buzzword actually in recent years, with a sort of focus on general research impact. But if you like, we've done it since the beginning. And the idea really was that because the internet develops so quickly, because policy reacts so slowly, it would be really senseless to do lots and lots of wonderful research, but then not somehow sort of feed that back, or equally not to engage with relevant communities, whether that be users, industry, whether it be policymakers and so on. So again, it's something slightly different from a lot of the other academic departments here, which are now embracing this, I think, quite enthusiastically, but it's been very much part of us since our origins. Obviously already mentioned the size a couple of times, but I mean, for all the emphasis on us being small, actually, we are sort of fairly unique in the spread of our faculty. So, you'll notice on the website that we say we're multidisciplinary. Well, what does that mean? Everybody says they're multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary these days. In our case, what it means is that we have this unique subject focus, focusing on life online, life with the internet, life without the internet. But we approach that from a very wide variety of angles. So amongst our faculty here, who certainly number, I think it's over sort of 20 fellows and professors now, isn't it? And something like another 10 or 15 researchers. But they come from, from law, from economics, from geography, from psychology, from sociology. It's just the most extraordinarily diverse group of people, all with this remarkable common interest. It's also multidisciplinary in the sense that we genuinely work together. And that's something that's also quite unusual, I think, in this field. So you will find projects, research projects, which bring together these very different disciplinary approaches in a remarkably symbiotic way. And that also somehow feeds through, I think, into the teaching, that you'll find there are common themes, for example, say in the course that I teach on digital era government politics, picked up in, say, internet technology and regulation, approaching it more from a sort of computer science and policy perspective, or again from internet and law. So these common themes and interests and questions which sort of thread around the OII, but which we address from multiple perspectives, and that's a real strength of what we do. I also just wanted to mention, just briefly, a little bit about another aspect of our philosophy, which was when we were established. I think it's probably fair to say there was a sort of degree of scepticism about whether or not this would be a media studies department in Oxford and whether it would be entirely sort of focused on media theory or communication theory. And there was very much a feeling that actually what was very much needed was some really sort of high quality empirical research around the internet. That's something we still continue to focus on, and for that reason, you know, certainly Ralph will also talk a little bit about this, but also Eric, we place quite a lot of emphasis on sort of methods teaching, giving our students rigorous training both in how to design, undertake research, but also how to interpret it if you're reading it. So, you know, it's our belief that whether or not you're going out into the world as an academic in your own right, or as, say, an analyst at Google or a policymaker, you should be able to read journal articles, pieces of original research, and understand their strengths and their weaknesses. So that's something, again, that's very much been with us from the beginning. I think, though, equally, over the last few years, we've realised that in doing so, it's also important to emphasise much more the sort of the theory side. And so coming here now, you know, you'll find, for example, we've got a, you know, philosophy and technology reading group. A lot of the core courses on the master's course have strong theoretical elements. So we really do think we do both of these things very, very well. But it is, I think, quite important for people who come here to know that we do require you to do both. So even if you're coming in, say, to write a sort of jurisprudence thesis, we would still want you to do, you know, research methods training and so on. One more very practical thing, and then maybe show some of the sort of exciting things that we do at the moment. We are currently located, obviously, here, but also in some other premises up at the Banbury Road. So it's worth just flagging that up because people get surprised by this further down the line. You might walk around the OII and think, my goodness, how on earth can you fit all these students in this tiny building? But rest assured, we do have additional space, which is about 10 minutes walk from here. And certainly that's where the majority of our sort of student facilities are based in terms of, say, DPhil desks, master student hot desks. A lot of our faculty are there now as well. So although the teaching space is here, you will, you know, rest assured that we wouldn't be trying to cram, you know, 20 to 25 master students and all our DPhil students into the offices that you'll see here today. So I guess I just wanted, in fact I don't really want this page at all, I'm going to go, keyboard, excuse me. I just wanted to just flag up a couple of things that I think are sort of quite interesting about what we're doing at the moment to give you a sense of what's sort of new and unusual. And I was just going to do so by looking actually at our blogs. Just out of interest, who here blogs or tweets, or a couple of you might find if you do come that changes. It tends to convince even the most anti-social media people at the end of the day. So I just wanted to see who recognised. Has anybody seen this in the past week? Right, so this is a rather fantastic map produced by Dr. Mark Graham and Stefano Di Sabata, which aims to demonstrate to you in this rather beautiful old-fashioned way who the new internet empires are dominated by. So the different colours merely demonstrate which are the most popular websites in the particular countries. Red, understandably, is Google, blue is Facebook. One of the cross-hatching you can see is Baidu and so on. I mean, I'm not going to talk and analyse this in sort of any great depth, but just it's quite a nice way of illustrating the two things that we think we do here. One, which is, as I said, very sort of high quality, you know, sort of rigorous empirical research, in this case, you know, collection analysis of data about the most popular websites around the world, but also about communicating their implications, whether that be, in this case, you know, in a very, very media-friendly way. This has done the rounds of, you know, all the major UK news sites. It's been in the Atlantic. It's been picked up in non-UK press. So, you know, for an academic department to have this sort of impact, I think, is really highly unusual. And we would expect in some ways some of you to do the same. I mean, it is worth noting that some of the students that we have here themselves, for example, have had their research featured in the media. And that demonstrates, I think, not just the sort of the quality of what they do, but also, if you like, the sort of more importantly, perhaps the general interest.
My name's Tess Ablett, and I'm from Graduate Admissions and Funding in Oxford, which is a central department. Thank you very much. And we deal with everything from talking to students, helping them through the graduate application process, taking any inquiries they have. We also process all the applications, so we receive them all for graduate study except for the business school, who deal with their graduate applications a little bit separately to us. And we also administer lots of scholarships in our team, so all of the central university graduate scholarships, they all kind of go through our graduate funding team. I'm here basically just to give you a bit of an overview into graduate study, so everything specific about the department obviously you can talk to these guys about, but just to give you an introduction into what you can kind of expect as a graduate student, and also how to apply, go through the application process with you. So just to give you a bit of an introduction into Oxford, some of you already know this as current students, Obviously, Oxford is very famous across the world, ranked highly in all of the league tables. And I think a lot of this is due to its history. It's over 900 years old. Obviously, the department isn't, but it has educated many world leaders and Nobel Prize winners. So there's a lot of tradition in Oxford. You'll see this walking around with the old buildings, and a lot of the colleges are quite old. We've got lots of traditions, but then there's also a lot of innovation. So we've got new departments coming on, doing lots of exciting research. So it's quite an exciting and dynamic university to study in because of those reasons. I think the reputation of Oxford really attracts the best academics from across the world. And as graduate students, you will work very closely with the academics, whether that's your supervisor if you're studying a DPhil, or as a master's student, you always have very close working relationships with the academics in the department, which is a real feature of kind of an Oxford education. As I've said, there are lots of cutting edge facilities. There's lots of old buildings and old museums and libraries that you can really take advantage of, but then there's new laboratories popping up across Oxford. There's lots of new things happening as well, so it is a very exciting place to be as a graduate student. And we have our unique college experience. So as a graduate student, you'll be part of a department where you receive all your teaching and your supervision, but you are also part of a college. It's slightly different to the undergraduate system because you're not taught through your college, but you will always be part of a college, and it offers you kind of a more multidisciplinary experience. Lots of events happen in college, and you can get to know people from different subject areas. A little word about our graduate students. We have over 9,800 graduate students at Oxford. That actually represents 40% of the whole student body, so they are really quite critical to Oxford's success. And actually 60% of our graduate students are from outside of the UK, so it's a real sort of international student body at graduate level anyway. And we have an award-winning career service and lots of benefits as alumni once you've graduated. So just a quick word about our courses. Obviously we have our taught courses at graduate level, which are master's level courses. These have a lot of taught elements, so lectures, seminars, tutorials, and they're typically assessed by exams and coursework. And then we also have our research degrees, which are usually 3 to 4 years, and that's when you would work on a substantial, original research project, and you'd have either 1 or 2 supervisors. Obviously you can find out a lot more later on from these academics, which is great. And we have over 200 master's degrees and 120 doctoral degrees at Oxford, spread across a huge range of subject areas, so there is usually something to suit your interests at graduate level. And then, as I've touched on, we have our colleges in Oxford, which is quite a unique feature. I think only Cambridge in the UK has colleges as well. And it really does offer you kind of another dimension to your experience at university. And it offers you a lot of support, pastoral support mainly. You will receive a lot of support through your graduate degree, through your department. You'll have an academic advisor. So if you have any issues during your degree, then that would be who you go to. But if you have any other problems during your time at university, you will have a college advisor who can help you with any problems that arise. So there is a lot of support offered through your college. All of the colleges in Oxford are quite slightly different. Some are very, very old, some are a lot more modern, some are just dedicated for graduate students. So it's worth sort of having a look into the colleges and the different facilities that they have when you're applying. But actually, so when you apply, you can indicate a preference for a college on your application form, but a third of our applicants don't indicate a preference. Your application just goes into an open pool, and colleges can essentially pick you from that pool. So it's something to sort of look at before you submit your application, but it's not something to worry about. And if you don't have to put so much. Some people worry about which college should I choose, and essentially a college will offer you the same sort of experience, whichever one you go to. So just a quick word about scholarships. We are very lucky in Oxford that we have a very generous scholarship provision, particularly compared to other UK universities. So for new graduate students starting next year, there are over 850 full scholarships. And these will cover your university tuition fees, your college fees, and also a maintenance grant for your living allowances. So we do have a lot of scholarships available. A lot of these are provided by the Central University. If you want to apply for any of these university scholarships, you have to apply by the January deadline. I'll come on to deadlines in a minute, but the key thing to remember is to apply by the January deadline for any of these. Some of our scholarships, it's literally just a case of ticking a box on the application form. Some of them do require a separate application process, so do have a look at the criteria for applying for the different scholarships if this is a consideration for you. And I've just picked out a few of the full scholarships that we have at Oxford. So we have the Clarendon Fund, which is our flagship scheme. It offers over 120 full scholarships every year across all subject areas. And it's worth saying that for all of our graduate scholarships, it's awarded to the very top students academic-wise. So for the Clarendon Fund, it's across all divisions, and divisions will be allocated a certain number of scholarships, and they will pick out the top students from the applications, and they will be awarded the scholarships. There's also a scholarship in the OII, I believe, so you can maybe find out a bit more about that later on. And there's a lot more information on our website, all of the scholarships that are provided by the Central University. We also have links to external scholarships that you may be eligible for as well. So if you are looking for funding, there's an awful lot of information online, so do have a look into it. So just a little bit more about the support that's in Oxford. So obviously you have your academic advisors, your supervisor in your department, you also have a college advisor in your college, but then we also have a lot of support services provided by the Central University. So we have accommodation services, disability advisory services. There are lots of services particularly for international students. So we have an orientation programme at the beginning of term. It's a set of activities to really guide you into Oxford life, so the transition is as easy as possible. There's lots and lots of other support out there to really help you. I mean, Oxford is quite an intense learning environment, but there's a lot of support provided to help you throughout your studies. And there's a lot of student societies that you can get involved with. There's over 400 different societies. So whatever you're interested in, there are subject-specific societies, there are music societies, sports societies as well. So hopefully, whatever your interests are, will be catered for by the different student societies. So just to go into how to apply for graduate study, we have 3 main application deadlines. One in November, which is coming up shortly, one in January, and then one in March. The main application deadline is January for graduate study, because this is the deadline for university scholarships. So we do try to encourage people to apply by the January deadline. Although I think for the OII, people can apply for the March deadline as well.
No, for the masters, not for the DPhil.
Okay, so just for masters, you could apply by the March deadline. And we do recommend that you take a lot of time over your application. A graduate application does take a while to complete. There's lots of components that you need to gather, so it is worth spending a lot of time on starting quite early before the deadline, particularly for us in graduate admissions. If we receive a query or your application isn't quite complete but you submit it on the day of the deadline, we won't be able to inform you of that and to ask for the extra material to be provided, and therefore your application wouldn't be considered. So it is worth submitting it in time for us to help you, and for you to ask any questions during the application process. So these are all...
Can I actually underscore that point, because we've had people who've submitted at the last minute and had computer problems or something was missing, And there's very little that can be done in that case, so submit it a week in advance, and that way there's plenty of time for them to help you get your materials in order. Because it doesn't put you on the good foot if the first thing, your first contact with this is saying, please make an exception for me, because that doesn't.
We can't.
Exactly, we can't.
Our hands are tied.
Also, springing off of that, I would recommend that your recommenders are also told like a week before, because I know that I was on top of things, but sometimes you're going to have 3 references, and both, they might have difficulty with the system, and in general, you want to make sure that you're on top of that as well.
Absolutely.
Very good point. So these are all of the requirements that the standard requirements for graduate applications. So we have an online application form. It's quite a long application form, but it really is just entering sort of your background information. And then you also need to submit a few supporting materials. So you need to submit an official transcript from your most recent degree or your current degree. And this shows all of your sort of marks in any exams that you've taken and any coursework. This just has to be a scanned copy at the time of application, but if you are made an offer, you need to provide the original. You also need to provide a CV, and this is just as you would apply for a job, just that sort of CV, but detailing any relevant experience that could relate to the degree that you're applying for. You need to submit a statement of purpose or a research proposal. So statement of purpose for the master's degree, research proposal for the research degree. These are really important documents in the application because it is very competitive to get into Oxford, and a lot of people do meet the minimum requirements, and these are kind of an opportunity to make yourself stand out from the other applications. I think there's a lot more guidance online for what these documents should include for the OII, and also you've got the opportunity to talk to the members of staff who might be able to give you some guidance for what they're looking for these, but it's worth taking a lot of time on these particular documents. As we've said already, you need to provide 3 academic references, so these need to be people that have known you quite well in your current or most recent degree. If you haven't been studying for a while, it might be possible to submit a professional reference, but it does depend on the department, so you need to talk to the department about this. And when you start to complete your application form, you would write the contact details for referees on the application form. The online application system automatically sends an email to the references to let them know, but it's actually your responsibility to chase up these referees. And they need to submit your references by the deadline. So we can't be chasing up thousands and thousands of references centrally. So that is your responsibility to make sure that they've submitted your reference in time for the deadline. Otherwise, your application won't be considered. If you're not, you haven't been taught at an English-speaking university, you would need to provide English language test results. I'll come on to that in a minute. And then some programmes may require written work, which I think the OII does, and then some other materials, depends on the department, so you need to check the website. There is also an application fee of £50 for each application. So we get a lot of questions about what makes a strong application. You'll be able to talk to the academics to find out what they're looking for today, but generally what we say to students is it is a strong match against the selection criteria. Online we have a course guide. For every course there is selection criteria, so you can check that and check if you match up against that. We're not only looking for academic results, it's your potential, so anything else that you've done outside of your degree, any professional experience you can bring to this degree that's relevant. As I've said, the research proposal and statement of purpose is very important, and it's important that you take time on it and check it for any spelling mistakes, simple things like that. It needs to be your best work and to show your real potential in this. Show a passion for your subject. I think it's important for the academics to see exactly why you want to study this course and what you can bring to it, and just really try to get that across in your application. And as I've said, get all of your application materials in by the deadline. Crucial, as your application won't be considered if they're not there in time. English language, these are the tests that we require, we accept. Some courses would accept the standard score, some would actually require the higher score. Actually, most of the courses require the higher score. And you'd need to get, that is the minimum. If you're looking at the TOEFL, you would need to get each of those scores in each component. That is a minimum. When you apply, you don't need to submit your English language test results, but before the deadline, that is the one sort of material that you don't need to submit. You would obviously get a conditional offer based on your English language test, but that can come at a later stage. So just a little word about the process. As I've explained to a few of you, so I'm from graduate admissions. We essentially, when you submit your application, they all come through to our team, and we will check that every application is complete. So it's got all of those application materials. If there's something missing, we'll contact you to let you know that something is not there, if there is enough time before the deadline. And once your application is complete, we will then send it off to each department. That's the sort of important part of the stage. That's where they'll decide if you're going to be made an offer. And if you are, there may be conditions associated with the offer. And then your application will be forwarded on to a college. If you have indicated a preference on your application form, it will go to that first college. If not, it will go into this open pool of colleges, and colleges will be able to pick you from there. But you will always get a college as a graduate student. You don't need to worry whether that is the one that you've sort of indicated a preference for or not. That you will always have a college. And then just to talk quickly about the support that the Careers Service offers. It is an award-winning careers service in Oxford. Quite literally has been awarded lots of prizes and things across the UK. But we offer support to you as graduates from day one of your course. There are lots of training opportunities, workshops, internships, to really make sure that you can get that dream job when you graduate, or if you want to go on to further study, there's lots of skills workshops that you can take advantage of. And once you graduate, you'll be one of our alumni, and we have groups in many countries all over the world, so you'll still be connected with Oxford, no matter how long ago your degree was. And if you need any further information, we have a lot of information on our Central Graduate Study website. You can contact us after today on the phone, online. We're also based on Little Clarendon Street, for those of you who are in Oxford. We're in the Admissions Information Centre. We're also on various social media channels, but if you have any questions, I'm very happy to take them afterwards. Okay.
Brilliant, thank you. Can we just take a couple of questions?
Yeah.
We're actually going to be a couple more.
Can I ask
Yeah.
this? You know about the referees? They will only be able to provide a reference once we send in our application. Is that correct?
When you start to complete the form,
Yeah.
you can put in their contact details, and that will automatically send them an email. It's not once you've submitted it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I could just start doing the application
Yes.
now, and
Yeah.
then
And give them enough
from now to
time.
January they will have the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And is it possible to change those referees
Once
if they
you-
don't? I don't know. In case one of them is a bit unresponsive or it takes too much time.
I
and
think that's fine. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
If the reference is not available, for example, I was studying the department, now is no anymore, and that doctor is no anymore there,
Okay.
because already I did my master 10 years back.
Mhm. So
what
you might be able to use professional references as well.
What will be happening for because for this I'm also working.
Mm.
Then I was studying. Then I come back to work. Then I come back to study. Okay, and the reference what I get from university already two is no anymore. One already retired for the master. One is the department they changed name and they put in the other department. And that
Would you still be able to get his contact details, or even if they've moved sort of in the department?
I spent 3 months for one doctor, I was running to him and I find him. He's working in the hospitals. He was in the University of Warwick in health information medical education. Was the health informatics is the department in the medical education. That times he leave the department. I was looking for secretary. He give me his number in the hospital. Then I contact to him and I get the new reference.
Okay.
Maybe you have difficulty to get back again.
I mean, would you be able to provide professional
If you can't
references?
provide academic references, obviously we'll take professional
I-
references. But
I
I think
have-
if you can get a combination of
I have another two from
Fine.
the other colleague
I mean, that's fine, I mean,
Yeah.
from my university where I am, not from my education,
Mhm.
support what the
Mhm.
one from my education. Because
I mean, we would be skeptical if somebody submitted no academic references and only 3 professional references.
Yeah.
But if you have 2 academic and 1 professional, that's fine.
yeah.
yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
you know, particularly if you've been out working and so forth.
And
I
2
think-
professionals and one academic.
Hmm?
2 professionals and 1 academic.
I'd try for
In
2
case,
academic if you could. I mean, or if you've got a professional reference that can speak to your ability to write and analyze, if you've had a job that involves analysis or writing reports, that might be okay too. But we want something that not just speaks to your character, but speaks to your ability to do the kind of work that we'll expect of you.
Okay. I mean, I think this is really the key, that if you have any problems about getting 3 academic referees, be very upfront. You know, you can even put this in your statement. Look, I was at a university which no longer exists, you know, please accept my apologies, but I've tried to get a professional reference and I've tried to get them to speak as much to my academic abilities as opposed to just work abilities. But your work abilities could also reflect on your, you know, ability to do
Yeah, yeah.
academic study. So make that very explicit. Don't leave us guessing, oh my goodness, you know, why did this person only, you know, get his friends to write the references? Make it very explicit, and as long as you give us, you know, very good grounds,
Yeah.
anything is possible, really.
Yeah.
Should we just maybe one more question?
Yeah.
Please, before we move on. Or is that it?
Any questions?
Yeah.
I had a question regarding the submitted work. And as I'm sure you're aware, Oxford students are not normally given the opportunity to sort of make larger research project while they're here. So what's the sort of scope that you're looking for? And perhaps even content. Would you want to be directly related?
Well, one of the benefits of being an Oxford undergraduate, at least, is that you have written a lot. So it may not be larger pieces of work, but you'll have lots of good essays to choose from, and it's perfectly acceptable for us to receive. I mean, most undergraduate essays are sort of 2,000 words or so, aren't they? So, I think we even set a maximum word limit. So that would be absolutely fine. Just pick one you think best reflects your abilities.
Again, any kind of work, academic work that shows you in your best light, shows your analytical capability, shows your ability to argue, reason and so on. It's better to have a good essay like that rather than trying to make something artificially related to, I wrote an essay as a high school student about my Facebook experience. We want
Yeah.
your best work, and believe me, I've read applications that have, any kind of essay ranging from, the role of singing in romantic literature to a device for parsing Wikipedia entries that has gone into computer science proceedings. I've read the whole range, but as long as they show kind of promise, that's fine.
Can I ask you just one question regarding the essays? Is the 2,000 word limit, is that just indicative, or should we really be strict and
I think,
beyond that?
try to keep it to that, because we're not going to read much. We're not
Yeah, I
going to
guess.
read a treatise on.
Yeah, no, well, but if it's like, we
But
have
if it's,
usually 10%
if it's 100
margin.
words over, I'm not going to.
Okay. We're not gonna
If you
sit
absolutely
there
need to
and
include the
count.
conclusion, that's fine. Don't worry.
It's more to be aware, particularly if you send something longer, just be aware that we won't read it all.
Yeah.
We'll read enough to let us get a sense of your abilities. So that's more the issue, I think. Okay, so we can come back to admissions questions. That's not a problem. But maybe let's move on now to Ralph, if that's okay.